Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? It's time to get this week started, and I hope and pray that each and every one of you are in a happy mood. So happy Monday. Now, every Monday, I always start off reminding you all of our radio show. So tonight on Marriage Mondays with the Kings, our topic tonight, marriage topic tonight is husbands. You want that title, but you don't want that responsibility. The question of the day, what does the Bible say about husbands' responsibility in marriage? Okay. Good morning, Cousin Kim. So again, husbands, you want that title, but you don't want that responsibility. Now, I know husbands are listening to this right now, talking about, oh man, this is going to be a show where they beat up the husbands. No, because anybody who knows us, if we do something for the husbands, we're going to do something for the wives. So wives, we got you next week. But what we're going to purpose to do on tonight's show on KRGN 98.5 FM, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. What we purpose to do for tonight's show is we purpose to get into the scriptures. What does the word say? Not what man say a husband should be, but what does the word say? So anyway, go ahead and get into today's topic. When God is using you to be the example in your marriage. When God is using you to be the example in your marriage. Good morning, Heather. Good morning, Aunt Paula. How are y'all doing? Let me go ahead and holler at my singles before I really get into the meat of this. Now, singles, this ain't gonna make no sense now, but it makes sense in a minute. What I encourage you to look at, and all you married folks on here, help your sister out, okay? I encourage you, before you say I do, singles, I need you to look at the person's situation, okay? Because what I'm about to say is not going to apply probably what I'm going to say in a minute. So that's why I got to divide it up. I need you, if you are really serious about somebody that you about to marry, husband or wife, you really about to fall in love with them, I need you to look at their situation, okay? Now, if their situation, meaning the way that they live, if they are used to mama and daddy, auntie, cousins, and uncles taking care of them, then please know, I need you to know, don't ever say nobody ever told you, because Shannon's telling you. Please know that, of course, they're going to make it seem like they super love you, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to transfer from mom and dad and them taking care of them to you taking care of them, especially if you got a good job, education, you done work to get to where you at, you got all the things, they're going to look at an opportunity, okay? So I know y'all like, Shan, dang, that's how you gonna come out the block? That's how I'm gonna come out the block. Now let me get into this. When God used you to be the example in your marriage, let me tell you, number one, what I cannot stand. Who am I? Okay, but what I can't stand is gonna make a little bit of sense here in a second. I cannot stand when you have a husband and or a wife who, I always say, you don't know what your purpose is in life. You don't know who God created for you to be. Your spouse seems to know, and you either are jealous, you always saying something out your mouth that's negative, that's hateful towards what they're doing, and what they're doing may be a good thing. They may be fundraising for charity events. They may be helping the homeless, and they're really excelling at their gift that God has given them, but you're not. And you allow your jealous spirit to come in and tear them down, to make them second guess their gift that God has given them. Yeah, I had to hit that first. But getting to when God uses you as an example in your marriage, some of you all do not, let me go on the flip side of it. Say it like this. Okay, so give a prime example to make it plain so it'll make sense. I am a driven individual. I want you all who are married, I want you to look at your husband or your wife, just kind of think in your mind, and I want you to be to that. Look at the environment in which they grew up in. Now, something that we as husbands and wives tend to do, which we shouldn't do, is we will say, to our spouse, or we would think they should be further in life. We should be further than where we are right now if they did, Now, I ain't talking about the leeching spouses. I'm talking about the ones that's actually getting up and doing, okay? So let me make that difference. But if they did this, if they did that, then we be further along. We be over here. I'm just throw a name out there. That is my cousin's name. We be up like the Hendersons. We'll be doing good, only if my spouse did, I'm going to school, I'm getting the education I'm doing. But if he did or she did, then we'll be just like the Hendersons. We'll be living good like them. We won't be over here struggling. No, that's not necessarily the case. But I want you to ask yourself, What was your husband or wife taught? What was the environment in which they grew up in? Because a lot of times we assume just because we're grown individuals that our husbands and wives should automatically know. But if that drive was never planted in them, how can you expect them to move like you move? Okay? Now, like I always say, I didn't grow up in the best of, you know what I'm saying, environments or whatever. My parents did the best they could, you know, whatever the case may be. However, it was one seed that was sown into me by my late grandfather. And I remember I wanted to do something. I can't remember what it was now at this time. I think it was modeling. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a model. And so I was thinking in my mind all these ways, well, Papa, I can't do that and this and that. He was like, and why can't you? He said, call the people and see what you need to do and stuff. And so I called the people. I think I was like maybe 102 pounds wet, but they told me I weighed too much for my height. Anyway, so I came back to my papa. I told him, he said, baby, let me tell you this. He said, don't you ever let anybody tell you what you cannot do. That's what my late grandfather put into me. Don't you ever let nobody tell you what you can't do. If they say you can't, then you find a way to do it. You see what I'm saying? Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Rebecca. You find a way to do it. And so I always, because that seed was planted in me, I always had that drive to do more. Okay? And see, now let me go to part C of this. Some of us, especially if we have the gift of discernment from the God on high, some of us can see the potential in our spouses that they can't see in themselves, okay? And what we'll do is we'll say things out of our mouth, but we don't understand what we're doing is actually beating them down more than we're building them up in the way that we say it. Like I posted on my Facebook page, it's all about the delivery, you know? And so in saying that, we have to be careful in that aspect, that we are not beating up our spouse when we are actually trying to encourage them. And so, you know, I had to think back before I come on here. God take me down memory lane and stuff too. Like I told y'all, when I first met my husband, he was an E5 in the United States Army. I think I was an E3. I was lower ranking. He was in leadership. And I remember when I asked him, you know, as a young girl, I might have been 19 years old. Where do you see yourself going? Now I'm 19. My husband's 7 years older than me. Where do you see yourself going in life? And he was like, oh, you know, where do you see yourself as far as your career? He said, oh, well, you know, I could just stay right here at this rank. I could retire. You know, that was his mindset then. And like I said before, I was like, oh, no, that's not what we're doing. Because the potential in him, and it wasn't about me and making me look good and us get more money and all this. It was the potential that I saw in him. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes God will use us in our marriage to be the example for our spouse. All you got to do is walk and be the living example. See, we desire to be the living example for everybody else outside of our home. But how do we know that God is not using us to be the example inside our home? And so, like I've said, me and my husband sit down, we spoke. I was like, baby, this job ain't getting it. It's stressing me out. It's making my hair fall out. I'm sick, you know, and all this other kind of stuff. I'm on bed rest. I can't do it. The job was stressing me out to the max, even though I loved helping people and what I was doing. So we had the conversation. He was like, so what do you want to do? What are you trying to do? I said, baby, I think I'm about to go back to school. And he was just like, okay, what are you going to go to school for? And I said, to be a counselor. But God is amazing. Now I'm having this conversation with my husband. Now, he got accepted into the university before I did. I don't know what sparked in him, but that brother got accepted before me. What are you saying, Shan? God will allow you to build up your spouse, to encourage your spouse within your home. But see, what I could have did was said, why, I told him I wanted to go back to school for counseling. Why that joker got to be doing what I'm doing? How many of y'all say that? Hello out there, somebody. Some of you guilty saying that you just did that this morning to your spouse. Well, why, when it come to me trying to do something greater? Some of y'all do that in the church. Let church folks raise your hand. I can't see you, but raise your hand. Some of y'all do that to your spouse in the church. God has called your spouse to be a preacher, or God has called your spouse to be a minister or a missionary. Whatever the case may be, God has called your spouse to do, but You feeling some kind of way because you don't know what you supposed to be doing. You see what I'm saying? You ain't got before God and said, God, what am I supposed to be doing? You ain't did that. So you trying to make your spouse feel bad for what God called them to do. Let me tell you something I know in marriage. And like I said, me and my husband, it's ironic. God, this is nothing but God. He allowed us to go through all the things that we have been through. I'm here to tell you right now, me and my husband are not old by any means or whatever. We actually young to have for the life experiences we've had. But the things that we go through in our marriage is to help us for greater at another level when we in the future. You see what I'm saying? And so I wouldn't have known back in 2016 when I had the conversation about with my husband about going to school, being in a master's program. I wouldn't have known that God was preparing us for what we about to do next. We can't put it out there. We'll put it out there later. But, God tell you to shut up sometime, So I didn't know that back then in 2016 when I had that conversation, and now we're in 2019. Quit. You do what God has called you to do, okay? But the spouse that be belittling, husband and or wife, quit putting your mouth negatively on your spouse. What you need to do is pray, okay? Pray for your spouse. Pray that they are doing God's will. You see what I'm saying? But you putting your mouth on it because you feeling some kind of way. Well, how he get up there? He preached so good because I'm telling you, my husband can preach, baby. Woo, Jesus. That man of God right there, he can minister because it's in him. That is what was embedded in him when he was growing up. So you have to have the conversation with your spouse. You cannot knock them for that in which they were not taught when they were growing up. You see what I'm saying? God, you may feel right now that your marriage, you're not living your best blessed life in your marriage because my spouse this, my spouse that. Well, baby, God may be calling you to be the example. You see what I'm saying? Quit allowing your nasty attitude to get in the way. And allow God, pray to God, seek out to God. God, how can you use me to be an example to my spouse, to motivate my spouse? You know what I'm saying? But if that joker's a leech and say the upbringing, because that is in the upbringing too, where you use people the best of your ability, that's what I was talking about in the beginning. Now it makes a little bit more sense. I don't know about all that right there. If they don't have no drive whatsoever and all they want to do is just sit and take, no, baby, you really gonna have to pray and see God if that's who he really wants you to be with. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was shouting out to my singles beforehand. So if you got nothing out of this video, don't turn down your spouse. You see what I'm saying? I need you to examine their upbringing. Who motivated them when they were little? Who spoke life into them when they were little? Maybe their mom and dad cussed them out, told them that they weren't good enough. They weren't going to never be anything. Those things. Now, I ain't going to say my mom and daddy cussed me out and did all that. But people telling me, Shan, you not going to make it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, what? You got pregnant? You a teenage mom? Where the daddy at? All these negative things inside the church and outside the church built me to who I am today. Some of y'all are still allowing those negatives that you heard in your childhood to determine who you are today. The devil is a lie, because when you know in the word of God that it says, marvelous are your works, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, oh God, it doesn't matter the negatives of what people say. So I encourage you, if you that husband and wife on today, that you always speaking negative to your spouse, you dirty dog, you trifling trick, whatever, you calling her the B word, you calling him the punk, you need to get your life together, because God didn't have you be in a marriage to further beat down your spouse. Just because they had their mama and their daddy in the house, like an awesome husband said on last week, doesn't mean that their mama and daddy was present in their life. Yeah, they were there, but they wasn't there. You see what I'm saying? So I encourage you to examine on today. And I encourage you to ask yourself, is God using you to be an example in your marriage? And so just because you're in college and you're going for your doctorate degree doesn't mean that that's what God has for your spouse. Maybe God has for your spouse to open up a business because they're great with their hands and they're great with people. You see what I'm saying? But either way, learn how to encourage in your marriage instead of turn down. Because I'm telling you, as God has allowed me to see things, I ain't saying that me and my husband are better, but he sure allowed me to just kind of back away from some folks. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever been around folks that all they do is talk negative about their spouse? Baby, if that's what they do, you might need to examine them. I'm just saying, they may not need to be in your circle anymore, because what we know to be factual, they talking negative about their spouse. Next thing you know, you talking negative about yours. They cussing their spouse out. Next thing you know, you cussing yours out. They going to the club acting like they single. Guess what you doing? Okay, so tonight at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on KRGN 98.5 FM, you can go to your app store. You can download that. Type in KRGN FM. You'll see that Royal Blue and White app. Download that app, or you can listen live at www.mykrgn.com. We encourage you to join me and my husband on the night. Women, I always hear you say this. I would love to hear a man's perspective. That's why I thank and respect the husbands who you comment on here, you know, when I do the lives. Thank you so much, because a lot of women say, I want to hear a man's perspective. I'm not one that's going to go and have a whole conversation about things that I should be talking to my husband about, you know, with another man. But when you hear another man, when a man hears another man, you know, wives, when we tell our husbands something, they act like they can't hear us, but when somebody else say it, it's an aha moment, you know, like my good girlfriend Donna say, just let them have it. Let them have it, you know, like they came up with it, even though we said it 2 weeks ago. But anyway, so we encourage you to join in tonight, where our topic for tonight will be husbands. You want that title, but you don't want that responsibility. We encourage you to dust off the Bibles. We encourage you to get a pen and paper. We encourage you to go ahead and power up them Bible apps that you ain't used in a whole good 3 years, because, baby, we're going to break it down like a fraction, and we believe that God is going to allow us to bring it. So y'all have a blessed Monday. Don't let anybody steal your joy. Share this because it's free. Be a blessing to somebody today and not a curse. Your girl Shan, trust and believe it's going to be back with you tomorrow, 7:30 Central Standard Time, with what God placed in my heart. God bless you and blessings to you.